Hello, this is Brad Wild, and today we are in the Swiss Alps. I know that's a bit of a departure, so to speak, for me. Normally I'm in the United States, but I thought I would just do some hand flying, as it were, between some airports tucked away in the mountains. And I'm going to be doing pilotage, or dead reckoning, using any landmark I can find on the ground to get me from point A to point B. And in front of you is the Carenado Cessna 210, and we're going to be flying that today. But let's take a look at our map. So SkyVector conveniently has Switzerland, and we're going to be taking off from this airport, Lima Sierra Golf Romeo, and trying to make it over here to Ambry, which is a private airport, but it's Lima Sierra Papa Mike. So I was looking for any sort of aid. I don't see any navigational aids, radio navigational aids, except for a couple of ADFs. So I'm looking on the ground for anything that might give me a clue. So I'm going to have to fly up this valley here to gain altitude, because I've got to reach at least 14.7 here to get over the mountains. So I'm going to have to do some climbing to get there. So I'm going to just put a waypoint there. That's just a conditional waypoint. And I'm going to be looking for this little lake here. And once I reach that lake, I can turn to a heading of 86 degrees and head towards the airport. Now, I'm going to have to descend from around 15,000 feet down to 3,200. So I need to do that in this valley as I come over the mountain and dip down into the valley and then begin a rapid descent. My only other aid is this airport, and it's going to be off to my right a little bit, but once I get over that, maybe I should probably head right over it so that I can get to that valley. So I'm just going to add a waypoint there. And that's when I begin my descent and kind of work my way around here. Again, a lot of hand flying. All right, so let's close things up here. And get this thing cranked up. All right, once in the cockpit, we can turn on our master and our battery. And how about beacon and nav? I've turned this off. It is there, by the way, but need to be able to see my lights and what's going on here. And this turns the radios on. Took me a while to find that, and get our panel lights up. And in this airplane you have to turn on the fuel. It comes off or when you load the airplane it's off. And mixture rich. And there is a practice of actually running the fuel pump for a second, and you'll see it climb up here. Don't want to flood the engine. And back on the throttle and then forward just a notch. And we're ready to shout clear and start our engine. And taxi light. and a notch of flaps. The wind is going to be off of our left, so we're going to be doing a bit of a crosswind takeoff. The takeoff in this airplane is squirrely anyway, so I'm going to ask forgiveness ahead of time. And we're clear to taxi. A bit of a unusual route to get there. So a quick word about the scenery. It's all default. This is just what comes with X-Plane, with the exception that I have used the high definition mesh for the terrain. This is version 3. Probably near a regular airport you wouldn't see high tension power lines there. So you can see the valley that we need to fly up as we climb over to the left. About 11 o'clock position once we get lined up here. And we'll accelerate slowly to try to minimize the craziness of this particular airplane. Maybe it's me, I'm not sure. I don't have rudder pedals, maybe that would make a difference. So strobes and landing lights on. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing off the ground adequately. So apologies ahead of time. Sideways. Not sure why it does that, but I suppose if I had rudder pedals, I would be in good shape. Alright, gear up. And we get a buzzer because we've got our flaps down, which is perfectly normal, but I'll go ahead and raise them. And we can come back on our prop speed, our RPM. Down to 2500. You can hear the engine slowing. But our power stays the same. And there's our valley that we're going to be climbing through. And we want to go to 10,000 or 14.7. So I will set that here and click arm. Now this airplane climbs very nicely. We're at over 1,500 feet a minute. We're still holding about 90 knots. I'm sure this is absolutely beautiful in real life. Doesn't look bad here. See how we're doing? So I'm assuming that the lake we're looking for is down in here somewhere. Where's our map? There we go. So right now we're climbing this direction, then we're going to turn a little bit to the left and look for our lake, and then head across at 91 degrees. Don't want to get too close to any of these mountains. I don't know if any of you have actually flown in the mountains, but you can get these winds that come off of them and can really put a damper on your climb. I had a kind of scary experience myself in the Adirondacks. Couldn't figure out why my airplane wasn't climbing. So the place where I rented it had to explain to me that, yep, you're in the mountains, Mr. Flatlander. And looking for that lake, as we should be off to our left. And there it is. So we want to head right over that. And turn to 90 degrees. I suppose I can use my autopilot to help me out here. And there we go. It looks like we're going to clear our first range here. So we are right about here, and we should look for a visual reference of a valley here. But other than that, there's not much to help us until we get over the mountain and can see this airport. Lima Sierra Papa uniform. So I'm going to take just a short break and back in a minute. Alright, we're level at 4,700 feet. Kind of a arbitrary number, but I suppose 15 would be safe. So we can come back on our power. Manifold pressure is our indication here. We'll just take it down to 2,000 or 20. I'm not sure how you would read that. And then we want to lean the mixture. So I'm going to watch my temperature gauge here for it to rise. And it will peak and then come back down. It's supposed to come down. There we go. And then you just notch it up a little bit. That's how I was taught to lean an engine. Lean the mixture. So we're looking for that valley, and I believe that is it. Where are my maps? My screens keep flipping around here. So that's that valley right here. There's a couple little airports, but I don't think we're going to be able to see them. By the way, this other screen is ScreenFlow, which I use to make these videos. So every once in a while you'll see me accidentally flip over there. So we're missing the highest peaks. Although the map said 14.7, so I'm assuming that's correct. But this is not a place to lose an engine. There's a great YouTube series that follows 2 or 3 guys, depending on where they were, who fly around the world. They start in California, and they're flying a single engine Cessna 210 across oceans, deserts, and boy, a lot of faith in that engine. Unfortunately, they don't make the 210 anymore. If you want one, you got to buy it used, but it was Cessna's fastest single. In fact, there was a pressurized version that the editor of Flying Magazine flew. So I'm hoping that once we get over this next ridge, down in this valley we will find our airport that we're using as a visual reference. We're holding around 91, 92. Of course, if we had a wind, that would change things. Flying just under the cloud deck. By the way, these clouds are the default X-plane clouds. You might have heard me say this before, but SkyMax just wasn't really accurate in depicting real conditions. Although that said, I'm not using real weather right now, because when I had real weather on, that airport was socked in. So in order to make this video, I had to go with manual controls. So not bad for high definition mesh. I don't know if they have ortho for this area, but I don't know. I'm okay with the mesh that we are using here. I know my friend Steve Haynes would beg to differ, but maybe he can answer the question whether or not there is ortho in this area. So let's see if the airport we want is showing up. Okay, here's 2 airports here. This is our going to be our visual reference that we are flying over. LSPU, which is right here. So we probably need to be a little bit to the west of it, or south of it, I should say. So I'll just tweak my heading. And let's see if we can find the airport we're shooting for, which is here. LSPM, Lima Sierra Papa. Mike. And that is basically straight ahead. So I assume it's down in this valley here. So once we get over this valley and get a sense of where we are, we can begin our descent, because we're going to have to descend very quickly. And there's our airport right here. This airport here is, I believe it's been decommissioned. There's some X's on the runway. I don't know if we can see that even by zooming in. No. But there is our airport, very short runway. And now we can begin our descent. So I'm going to crank this down to, see, our elevation of the airport's 40 or 32. So we will go for 43, which would be pattern altitude. I don't know if we're going to fly much of a pattern. Come back on our power. And we'll begin aggressive descent. SkyMax clouds definitely look better. Yeah, maybe you can see the X now. Yeah, so you don't want to land there. And maybe we're getting a little aggressive, up a notch. I'm just going to use my heading bug, might as well. Don't want to be flying in the mountains in the dark, but that is a pretty sight. That is the 210 that's been refined for X-Plane 11. And besides my takeoff, I like the airplane. Yeah, maybe I need to invest in some rudder pedals. Come back on the power and we can begin to descend a little bit faster. Here's our airport. So that's a 20-mile range. So we're just going to descend down through this valley. See the power lines here catching the sunlight. Alright, let's see how we do at 1,500 feet. Sorry, I'm not really hand flying, am I? This interesting atmospheric condition with the sunlight hitting the haze. Alright, I am hand flying. And I think we're descending nicely. I think I can come back a little bit. Of course, these obviously these airports are VFR only. And we got some lights on. So we just have about 2,000 feet to go to reach our pattern altitude. So I can probably slow our descent down a little bit. It's interesting to see how X-Plane is mapping these roads. It gets worse too. Maybe that's something they can work on, along with everything else. So we're about 10 miles out. And I think I see a runway here. So I want to start slowing down. This is considered a high performance aircraft, and you do need to stay ahead of it. I remember the first time I flew one, I got caught approaching an airport a little too fast. Wasn't used to that. Alright, we're going to have to descend significantly once we get through this valley. Don't want to get too close to the sides. Put our gear down. I love the way the gear comes down in this thing. So I've got some green lights there on the threshold. Put in a notch of flaps. So we're at 42. The airport is at 32. So I'm going to have to come around that mountain and get lined up. Another notch of flaps. Avoid the power lines here. Watch my speed. Alright, full flaps. Trim the nose down. Drag it in about 70 knots. There's quite a long, I don't know what you call that, apron for this airport. Put it right on the numbers here. Squirrely. So, safely on the ground, and I believe it's Embry, which is a private airport. Interesting roads around us. I wonder if that's at all realistic. I know that these are not. Got some crazy mapping here. But the countryside looks foreign, or Swiss, I should say, not US. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I apologize for that crazy takeoff and the kind of squirrely landing. It's not totally me, it's this airplane, and maybe if I got some rudder pedals, I can get that straightened out. But anyway, thanks for joining me. So, thanks for joining me. Until next time.